Never argue, never defend, never explain when silence becomes your power. 10 Secrets of Stoicism. Most people lose their power in the exact moment they feel misunderstood. Not when they are attacked, not when they are judged, not even when they are insulted. They lose it when something inside them begins to scream, "I need to correct this, I need to defend myself, I need to make them see who I really am." And from that moment on, they are no longer acting from strength. They are acting from emotional dependence. They are no longer standing on their own ground. They are stepping into someone else's arena, trying to win a battle that was designed to drain them. This is why so many people speak too much when they are wounded. They explain their intentions to those who have already decided to misread them. They defend their character to people who do not care about truth. They argue with those who are not searching for wisdom, only reaction. And without realizing it, they hand over the most valuable thing they possess, their inner authority. Because the moment your peace depends on changing someone else's mind, your peace is no longer yours. Stoicism teaches something far harder, far rarer, and far more powerful. It teaches that not every accusation deserves your answer, not every misunderstanding deserves your correction, not every challenge deserves your participation. There are moments in life when speaking does not clarify. It weakens. There are moments when defending yourself does not restore dignity. It places your dignity on trial. There are moments when explaining your heart to the wrong person does not bring peace. It only exposes what should have remained protected. This is where silence stops being absence and becomes force, not weak silence. Not fearful silence, not the silence of someone who has nothing to say, the silence of someone who sees clearly, the silence of someone who knows that truth does not become stronger because it is repeated 10 times to deaf minds, the silence of someone who refuses to perform their worth for an audience committed to misunderstanding them. That kind of silence changes everything. It changes your energy. It changes how people read you. It changes how much access the world has to your emotions. Most of all, it changes how deeply you are ruled by impulse. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He ruled an empire surrounded by noise, betrayal, ambition, false praise, false criticism, and endless pressure. Yet again and again, he returned to the same discipline. Govern yourself. Not the crowd, not the opinion of others, not the chaos outside you, yourself. Because a person who cannot remain steady when judged becomes a puppet of every voice around them. But a person who can endure misunderstanding without collapsing has entered a different level of freedom. That freedom is rare because the average person is addicted to emotional immediacy. They feel something and they must express it. They are hurt and they must react. They are doubted, and they must prove. They are questioned, and they must defend. They believe response is strength because silence feels unbearable. Silence forces them to sit with the hardest thing of all, the possibility that they may never be fully understood by everyone, and that their peace must survive that fact. Most people are not broken by conflict. They are broken by the inability to tolerate being seen incorrectly. But what if that is exactly where your transformation begins? What if the moment someone misjudges you is not the moment to panic, but the moment to observe? What if the attack is not exposing your weakness, but revealing where your ego still depends on approval? What if every urge to explain is showing you the exact place where you still need to become stronger? This is the Stoic path. Not the path of coldness, but of command. Not the path of silence as withdrawal, but silence as mastery. You do not become powerful by winning every argument. You become powerful when arguments no longer have the power to pull you out of yourself. There is a dangerous illusion that if you say it the right way, the right person will understand. If you defend yourself clearly enough, they will be fair. If you explain your motives deeply enough, they will stop distorting you. Sometimes that is true, but often it is not. Often people hear through the filter of their ego, their insecurity, their resentment, their need to feel superior, or their refusal to face their own flaws. And when you keep pouring truth into a closed mind, you do not create clarity. You create exhaustion. That is why the Stoic learns discernment. He asks a different question, not, how do I make them understand me? But, is this even a place where truth is welcome? Not, how do I defend my image? But why am I giving my image so much power over my peace? Not, how do I win this exchange? But what does this exchange reveal about my self-mastery? These questions pull you back from the edge of emotional waste. They return you to the only territory you can truly rule. And once you understand this, silence becomes more than restraint. It becomes protection. It becomes presence. It becomes self-respect without performance. Because there is something deeply unsettling about a person who does not rush to defend themselves, a person who does not beg to be understood, a person who remains calm while others burn their own credibility through noise. Such a person cannot be easily manipulated, because manipulation feeds on reaction. Such a person cannot be easily humiliated, because humiliation only works when the ego is desperate to recover face. Such a person begins to carry a kind of quiet gravity that words alone can never create. This is what the world rarely tells you. Your need to explain is often the very chain that keeps you weak. Your need to defend is often the doorway through which chaos enters. Your need to argue is often proof that someone has already pulled you away from your center. And the moment you see that clearly, you stop chasing victory in conversation. You start building victory within yourself. In this journey, you will understand why silence can protect your dignity, why over-explaining quietly destroys authority, why arguing with the wrong people gives away your energy, and why the strongest person in the room is often the one who speaks the least and sees the most. Because there comes a moment in a serious life when you must choose. Will you keep spending yourself trying to control what others think? Or will you become so grounded in your own character that their confusion no longer has the power to disturb your inner world? The first trap is not the argument itself. It is the need to be understood by people who were never interested in understanding you. This is where so many people begin to lose themselves, not because they are weak by nature, but because they still believe peace can be secured through explanation. They still believe that if they choose the right words, the right tone, the right timing, they can finally make another person see clearly. But life teaches a brutal lesson. Not everyone is confused. Some people understand you perfectly and still choose to twist what they see. Some people are not seeking truth. They are protecting their pride. Others are feeding their resentment. Others simply need you to be wrong so they can keep feeling right. This is why the Stoic becomes careful with the impulse to clarify everything. The average person thinks misunderstanding is always a problem to solve. The Stoic knows it is often a condition to endure. That changes everything. Because the moment you stop treating every false perception as an emergency, you begin to recover your balance. You stop rushing into emotional labor for people who have already shown you they are committed to their version of you. You stop trying to rescue your image from every careless mind. You stop placing your nervous system at the mercy of every opinion that rises against you. Most suffering in these moments does not come from what was said about you. It comes from the fire inside you that says, I cannot let them think this about me. And that is the real prison. Because once your peace depends on controlling how you are perceived, you will never rest. There will always be another accusation, another distortion, another cold silence, another unfair judgment, another half-truth spoken by someone with a wounded ego. If you make it your mission to fix all of it, your life will become one endless courtroom where you are constantly trying to prove your innocence to people who enjoy keeping you on trial. Epictetus would cut through this illusion without hesitation. He would remind you that some things are under your control and some are not. Your character is yours, your intention is yours, your response is yours. Another person's interpretation is not, their mood is not, their projection is not, their need to misunderstand you is not. And yet this is exactly where so many people waste their life force. They neglect the governance of self and become obsessed with the management of perception. They polish the mask while the mind behind it grows weaker. There is also a deeper reason why the need to be understood feels so intense. It touches the ego at its most vulnerable point. The ego wants confirmation that it is good, right, fair, worthy, respected. It wants witnesses, it wants agreement, it wants external reflection. So when someone refuses to see you correctly, the ego panics. It feels erased, it feels robbed, it feels insulted by the idea that its truth can exist without applause. That is why some people cannot stay silent for even a minute when they feel misjudged. They are not defending truth. They are defending identity. They are fighting to keep their reflection alive in the minds of others. But Stoicism asks for a higher standard. Can you remain loyal to your character even when your image is being mishandled? Can you stay composed even when your motives are questioned? Can you continue walking straight even when someone insists on reading you through suspicion, envy, or emotional immaturity? This is where silence becomes power. Not because silence magically fixes the situation, but because it proves you are no longer owned by it. It proves you can stand in the middle of distortion without abandoning yourself. It proves your center is not rented out to public opinion. Seneca understood that the mind becomes disturbed less by events than by the judgments attached to them. A false opinion about you is only unbearable when you treat it as a theft of your worth. But your worth was never sitting in another person's mouth. It was never stored in their approval. It was never dependent on their clarity. When you forget this, you become reactive. When you remember it, a different strength begins to form. You become slower to speak, slower to justify, slower to expose your inner world to careless people. You begin to understand that silence is not always a lack of courage. Sometimes it is the highest form of self-respect. There is another layer that makes this lesson even more important. The more you explain yourself to the wrong people, the more material you give them to keep controlling the exchange. They study your tone. They measure your urgency. They sense what still gets to you. They learn where your need lives. Manipulative people do not need to defeat you with logic. They only need to discover what unsettles you. Once they see that being misunderstood makes you panic, they know exactly where to press. And many people keep giving that information away, not with secrets, but with overreaction. Every rushed explanation becomes evidence that they still have access to your emotional center. A disciplined silence interrupts that pattern. It removes the reward. It denies chaotic people the reaction they were hoping to harvest. It gives you space to observe instead of performing, and that observation is priceless. Because once you stop speaking from the wound, you start seeing more clearly. You notice who distorts, who projects, who provokes, who listens, who is honest, and who was never interested in resolution. Words often blur perception because when you are busy defending yourself, you are not studying the person in front of you. You are only trying to survive their judgment. Silence returns your vision. This is why the first secret is not about becoming distant or proud. It is about becoming free from the compulsion to make every person understand you. Some will not, some cannot, some do not want to. And once you accept that, something powerful happens inside you. You stop begging for fair interpretation from people who are committed to inner disorder. You stop shrinking your dignity to fit their comfort. You stop interrupting your own growth just to correct temporary noise. You realize that the need to be understood by everyone is not sensitivity, it is bondage. The Stoic does not become silent because he has nothing to say. He becomes silent because he has learned that not every listener deserves access to his explanation. He knows that truth does not lose value because someone rejects it. He knows that character does not weaken because someone misreads it. He knows that a mind trained in self-command does not need to chase agreement in order to remain whole. And the moment this lesson becomes real to you, you stop living from the outside in. You return to the only place where power has ever truly existed, the disciplined rule of your own mind. Every time you explain yourself too much, you begin to negotiate your own power. That is the second secret most people learn too late. They think explanation is clarity. They think that if they speak longer, open their heart wider, reveal more detail, and justify every choice, they will regain control of how they are seen. But the opposite often happens. The more they explain, the more they place their certainty on trial. The more they try to prove themselves, the more they signal that their position still depends on outside approval. And once that happens, the center of power quietly moves away from them. This is why over-explaining is rarely as innocent as it looks. On the surface, it appears honest, transparent, even mature. But underneath, it is often driven by anxiety. Anxiety that someone might leave with the wrong impression. Anxiety that a false narrative might survive. Anxiety that silence will be interpreted as guilt, weakness, or defeat. So the person begins to speak, and then keeps speaking, and then keeps adding more. Not because the truth requires all that effort, but because the ego is terrified of losing control over perception. What began as communication slowly turns into self-exposure without discipline. The Stoic sees the danger immediately. He understands that explanation is useful only when it serves truth, not when it serves panic. He knows that once you start speaking from emotional urgency, your words stop carrying weight. They start carrying need. And people can feel that. They may not always understand it consciously, but they sense when a person is grounded and when a person is trying to rescue themselves in real time. One carries authority, the other carries tension. One speaks because it is necessary. The other speaks because silence feels unbearable. This is where many people unintentionally weaken their own presence. They are challenged once, so they respond. Then they are questioned again, so they clarify further. Then they notice doubt in the other person's face, so they reveal even more. Before long, they are no longer sharing truth. They are pleading with perception. They are trying to manage every thought forming in the other person's mind. And that is a losing game, because no amount of explanation can control a person who is committed to their own interpretation. Chrysippus, with his fierce devotion to logic, would likely strip this down to its core. If a statement is true, it does not become more true because it is repeated with greater emotional intensity. If your action is sound, it does not become more sound because you wrap it in endless justification. Reason does not beg, reason stands. The moment your explanation becomes an attempt to force acceptance, it leaves the realm of clarity and enters the realm of dependence. At that point, you are no longer guided by wisdom. You are guided by the fear of being misjudged. And fear has a way of making a person betray their own dignity. It pushes them to reveal things they should have kept private. It pushes them to answer questions that were never asked in good faith. It pushes them to defend decisions that were already aligned with their conscience. This is how people slowly teach others to interrogate them. By responding to every hint of doubt with an avalanche of explanation, they create the impression that their choices are always open for debate. They do not mean to surrender authority, but they do, not in one dramatic moment, but in small acts of verbal insecurity. Marcus Aurelius would return you to the same principle again. If you are doing what is right, then continue. If you have examined your motives and found them clean, then continue. If your conscience is not accusing you, then continue. Why should your peace tremble every time someone raises an eyebrow? Why should your mind become unstable because another person with incomplete vision feels entitled to an explanation? A person with inner command does not live as if every witness is a judge. He lives according to what reason and character demand, not according to the comfort of every observer. This does not mean never explaining anything. Stoicism is not a performance of coldness. It is discipline. There are moments when explanation is wise. There are moments when truth must be spoken plainly and directly. There are relationships that deserve clarity. There are responsibilities that require communication. But that is very different from compulsive over-explaining. The difference is simple and decisive. Wise explanation comes from calm. Weak explanation comes from fear. Wise explanation is measured, sufficient, and clean. Weak explanation keeps reaching, keeps stretching, keeps hoping that one more sentence will finally secure emotional safety. That safety never comes because it was being sought in the wrong place. The moment you try to secure your worth through explanation, you hand the other person a power they never should have had. You invite them to decide whether your reasons are acceptable, whether your feelings are valid, whether your choices deserve permission. And some people will gladly take that role. Not because they are wiser than you, but because many human beings are drawn to whatever gives them a sense of superiority. When they see that you desperately want to be understood, some will use that need to keep you speaking, keep you defending, keep you slightly off balance. They do not need to dominate the facts. They only need to keep you emotionally engaged. Silence interrupts this entire structure. It tells the world that you will communicate when it is useful, but you will not explain yourself into exhaustion for the comfort of unstable minds. It tells manipulative people that your inner world is not available for extraction on demand. It tells your own ego that not every doubt deserves a response. Most importantly, it teaches you to separate truth from performance. Many people are not tired because life is too hard. They are tired because they are constantly performing innocence, performing goodness, performing reasonableness, performing transparency, hoping that if they do it convincingly enough, everyone will approve. Stoicism ends that performance. Musonius Rufus would likely bring this lesson down to something simple and severe. Live in such a way that your life can explain what your mouth does not need to. Let conduct carry what speech is always trying to rescue. Let consistency say what panic keeps repeating. Because in the end, people may still misunderstand your words, but it is much harder to argue with a pattern of dignified action over time. This is the hidden strength of restraint. You stop trying to solve every tension with language. You stop believing that more words automatically mean more truth. You become selective. You become measured. You begin to understand that a person who explains less is often not hiding more. They are simply standing on something firmer inside themselves. They no longer need every room to confirm them. They no longer need every listener to validate them. They know what they meant. They know what they did. They know who they are. And that quiet certainty has more power than any desperate defense ever could. Not every person deserves a debate with you. That is the third secret. Many people think arguing is a sign of strength because it looks active, sharp, and forceful. They believe that if they push back hard enough, speak intelligently enough, and refuse to back down, they are protecting their dignity. But what they often fail to see is that an argument does not only consume words, it consumes focus, energy, emotional stability, and presence. And when you enter conflict with someone who has no respect for truth, you are not stepping into a fair exchange. You are stepping into a trap built to pull you downward. This is why the Stoic becomes extremely careful about who is allowed access to his mind. He does not treat every challenge as worthy. He does not confuse provocation with importance. He does not assume that because a person is loud, emotional, or insistent, they must be answered. Some people do not argue to understand, they argue to dominate. Some do not ask questions to learn, they ask questions to corner, confuse, and exhaust. Some do not seek clarity, they seek reaction. And the moment you fail to recognize that, you start wasting your highest resource on the lowest level of engagement. Epictetus would have seen this clearly. A person who can disturb your mind at will has already gained too much access to you. It does not matter whether they are right or wrong in that moment. What matters is that they can summon your anger, hook your ego, and keep your attention trapped inside a pointless exchange. Once that happens, they no longer need to defeat you with logic. They only need to keep you emotionally involved. This is why so many arguments never reach resolution. Resolution was never the goal. The goal was to pull you into the chaos where your self-command starts to weaken. Most people notice the damage only after the exchange is over. They leave the conversation drained, replaying what was said, thinking of what they should have said, carrying the person in their mind long after the person has left the room. That is the hidden cost. The argument does not end when the words stop. It keeps living inside the nervous system. It follows them into the evening, into their sleep, into the next day. Their body calms down slowly, but their pride keeps fighting long after the event is gone. And all of this energy was spent on someone who may not have deserved a single minute of inner disturbance. This is why Stoicism places such value on discernment. Wisdom is not only knowing how to speak, it is knowing when speech becomes waste. It is knowing that some battles lower you by their very nature. A fight with a petty mind cannot produce a noble result. A battle with a manipulative person cannot be won in the ordinary sense, because their victory is not in truth. Their victory is in keeping you engaged. The longer you stay in the exchange, the more they succeed. The more emotional you become, the more they confirm that they still have the power to reach inside you and move you. Seneca often warned against becoming like the very people who disturb you. This is one of the greatest dangers of argument. You begin by wanting to correct something false, but if you stay too long in the exchange, you start absorbing the energy of the person in front of you. Their impatience becomes yours. Their hostility begins to infect your tone. Their confusion starts bending your clarity. Little by little, you stop standing apart from their disorder and start participating in it. At that point, even if you win the argument on the surface, you have already lost something more important within yourself. There is also a painful truth hidden inside many arguments. Sometimes you are not arguing because the issue matters. You are arguing because your ego cannot tolerate being dismissed. It cannot accept the possibility of walking away without the final word. It cannot bear the thought that someone might continue believing something false about you. So it keeps you there. It keeps you explaining, pushing, correcting, proving, not because reason demands it, but because pride is wounded. This is where many intelligent people become weak. Their mind is sharp, their language is strong, their logic is clear, but their ego still owns the steering wheel. And once ego takes over, the argument is no longer about truth. It becomes about self-image. The Stoic path demands something harder. It asks whether you can let a foolish person remain foolish without feeling personally reduced. Whether you can let a false accusation hang in the air without lunging to kill it. Whether you can leave an immature exchange unfinished without feeling like you have betrayed yourself. This is not passive weakness. This is a higher form of strength. Because anyone can react, anyone can escalate, anyone can match energy. But it takes discipline to see a low-level battle for what it is and deny it the oxygen of your participation. Cato the Younger embodied this kind of firmness. He was not silent because he lacked conviction. He was silent when silence preserved integrity and spoke when speech served principle. That distinction matters. Stoicism does not teach withdrawal from all confrontation. It teaches refusal to waste yourself in trivial, manipulative, ego-driven conflict. A strong person is not one who argues with everyone. A strong person is one who knows the value of his attention and does not hand it out to every passing provocation. This is why silence can become so unsettling to the wrong people. They expect access to your reaction. They expect your immediate defense. They expect you to prove that they still matter enough to disturb you. And when that reaction does not come, something shifts. The structure they were trying to build collapses. Their bait loses value. Their performance loses audience. Their words return to them without the emotional reward they were hoping to extract from you. Silence in that moment is not avoidance. It is refusal. Refusal to descend. Refusal to volunteer your peace to someone whose only skill is agitation. There is deep dignity in that refusal. It protects more than your energy. It protects your identity. Because the people you keep arguing with begin to shape the state of your inner life. They become a silent influence over your mood, your thoughts, your reactions, your sense of calm. The more access they have, the more space they occupy. And eventually, you start living in opposition to them, rather than in alignment with yourself. Stoicism breaks that pattern by forcing one simple question into the center of the moment. Is this exchange worthy of my mind? Not my pride, not my impulse, my mind. That question changes everything, because once you begin measuring conflict by worthiness instead of emotional urgency, you stop getting dragged into every fight. You stop mistaking motion for strength. You begin to see that some people only look powerful because others keep volunteering their energy to them. And when you stop volunteering, their power fades. The Stoic becomes difficult to provoke not because he feels nothing, but because he has finally understood the cost of cheap battles. He knows that arguing with the unworthy does not defend his peace, it spends it. He knows that some people gain importance only because others keep responding. He knows that silence in the right moment is not surrender, it is command. And once you truly understand that, you will stop asking whether you can win every argument. You will start asking something far more important. Why would I enter a battle that can only make me smaller? Silence has a power that words almost never achieve on their own. It exposes, it reveals, it forces what is hidden to come forward without being chased. That is the fourth secret. Most people think silence is empty space, as if nothing is happening when no one is speaking. But that is a childish view of human nature. In reality, silence is often the moment when truth begins to show itself. Because when you stop interrupting a situation with defense, correction, and emotional noise, people lose the cover that your reaction was giving them. And once that cover disappears, they begin to reveal who they really are. This is why so many people fear silence. Not only when they are alone, but when they are in conflict. They rush to fill the space because the space itself is unbearable. If they do not explain, they feel vulnerable. If they do not answer, they feel exposed. If they do not defend themselves, they imagine the other person has won. So they speak quickly, often too quickly, and by doing so, they break the pressure that silence had begun to create. They save the other person from having to reveal more. They rescue the manipulator from overplaying their hand. They rescue the dishonest from becoming obvious. They rescue the immature from exposing the full size of their immaturity. The Stoic does the opposite. He understands that silence is not always a void. Sometimes it is a mirror. Sometimes it is a light. Sometimes it is the one force in the room that makes people confront themselves. A person who lies often talks too much when not interrupted. A person who is insecure reveals it when calmness does not react. A person who is trying to provoke becomes visible when the bait is not taken. A person who is committed to distortion shows their own nature more clearly when no one rushes to correct them. Silence does not create their character, it uncovers it. This is why silence can feel so unsettling to those who depend on confusion. They need your response to keep the structure alive. They need your defense so they can keep shifting positions. They need your emotion so they can avoid their own. They need your urgency so they can stay in control of the rhythm. But when you remain still, something changes. The rhythm is no longer theirs. The emotional field becomes different. Suddenly they are left with their own words, their own tone, their own energy, without the distraction of your reaction. And many people cannot hide very long under those conditions. Marcus Aurelius practiced a kind of inner stillness that made this possible. He did not rush to answer every movement around him because he knew that motion outside did not require motion within. He knew that when the mind remains undisturbed, perception becomes sharper. This is one of the great losses of a reactive life. The reactive person sees less because they are always busy answering. They do not observe fully because they are too occupied with defending themselves. They do not study the other person because they are trying to survive the moment. Their words become a shield, but that shield also blinds them. Silence removes that blindness. It gives you time to watch what most people miss. You start noticing patterns instead of statements. You notice how a person speaks when they are not getting the emotional effect they wanted. You notice whether they move toward clarity or toward escalation. You notice whether they want understanding or audience. You notice whether their confidence remains when it is not being fed by your reaction. These things are invisible to the person who is busy speaking. They become clear only to the person who can endure stillness without panicking. This is why silence is not passive. It is active observation. It is disciplined restraint serving perception. It is the refusal to waste energy on premature reaction when the situation is still revealing itself. Many people destroy their own advantage by speaking too early. They answer before they understand. They defend before they observe. They explain before they know who is truly in front of them. Then later they realize the entire exchange was built on false assumptions. Had they remained still a little longer, the other person would have revealed enough to make the truth obvious without effort. There is also a deeper psychological law at work here. Human beings expose themselves when they are given too much room and not enough resistance. The liar becomes elaborate. The manipulator becomes theatrical, the insecure becomes louder, the arrogant becomes reckless. Why does this happen? Because many people rely on the friction of your reaction to keep themselves measured. When that friction disappears, they begin expanding into the space in ways that reveal their true proportions. Silence allows excess to expose itself. It lets character leak out. Seneca would recognize this immediately because he understood how often human beings are carried away by their own passions. Give anger enough room and it will confess itself. Give vanity enough room and it will reveal its hunger. Give resentment enough room and it will show how deeply it has been feeding beneath the surface. Most people do not need to be accused in order to reveal themselves. They only need enough silence to keep talking without opposition. And when you know this, you stop believing that your immediate response is always necessary. Sometimes your greatest strength is the willingness to wait and let the truth unfold. But this kind of silence requires confidence, not the loud confidence that performs certainty, but the quiet confidence that can tolerate ambiguity. Because in silence you do not always get instant relief. You may have to sit through discomfort. You may have to endure being temporarily misunderstood. You may have to resist the urge to interrupt the story being built around you. That is difficult. It feels risky. It feels like surrender to the ego. But often it is not surrender at all. It is patience in service of clarity. It is the strength to let the moment reveal more before you decide how much of yourself it deserves. And what you often discover is astonishing. The person trying to appear calm begins unraveling. The one pretending to be reasonable begins showing hostility. The one acting morally superior begins contradicting themselves. The one trying to paint you as unstable becomes visibly more unstable than you. None of this needed your argument. None of it needed your defense. It only needed your restraint. That is the hidden power of silence. It allows truth to emerge without forcing it. It lets reality do what your panic was trying too hard to do alone. The Stoic learns to trust this. He learns that not every falsehood must be attacked in the first second. He learns that reality has a way of revealing people if you do not block the process with needless reaction. He learns that calm observation is often stronger than brilliant rebuttal. He learns that silence is not the absence of control, but one of its highest expressions, because a person who can hold steady long enough to see clearly will always be more dangerous than a person who reacts quickly just to feel safe. And once you understand this, silence stops feeling like weakness. It starts feeling like intelligence. It starts feeling like composure with eyes open. It starts feeling like the kind of power that does not need to announce itself because it is too busy watching what the noise is exposing. Then you begin to realize something most people never learn. Sometimes the fastest way to understand who someone is to stop talking and let them continue alone. The more a person rushes to defend themselves, the more they quietly suggest that their stability depends on being believed. That is the fifth secret. Most people never notice this because they are too busy reacting. They assume self-defense always protects dignity. They assume that if they do not immediately correct what is being said, others will take silence as weakness. But in many situations, the opposite is true. Excessive defense creates suspicion. Not because the person is guilty, but because their urgency gives the impression that their center is fragile. It tells the room that perception has too much power over them. This is one of the strangest laws of human psychology. Calm often appears stronger than explanation. Restraint often appears more credible than emotional insistence. The person who stays composed while being misread carries a kind of authority that words alone struggle to create. The person who scrambles to clean every stain from their image often ends up making the stain look more important than it was. They enlarge the problem through panic. They feed the doubt they were trying to erase. They turn a passing distortion into a full performance of self-protection. And once that happens, people stop watching the accusation and start watching the instability. The Stoic understands this with painful clarity. He knows that the world often reads energy before it reads facts. It feels your inner condition before it studies your argument. If your voice carries fear, if your words carry urgency, if your explanation keeps stretching beyond what is necessary, something in people starts to shift. Even when you are telling the truth, your need can make the truth feel less grounded. Not because truth has changed, but because your delivery has revealed that your peace is entangled with the outcome. This is why Marcus Aurelius kept returning to inward steadiness. A ruler surrounded by judgment could not afford to tremble every time someone doubted him. He had to remember that self-command comes before self-expression. If the mind is not governed, speech becomes the servant of agitation. It starts trying to repair what only inner firmness can hold together. A disturbed person can speak beautiful words and still communicate weakness. A steady person can say very little and still communicate strength. There is a brutal irony here. People often defend themselves because they fear being seen as guilty, weak, or wrong. Yet the desperation in the defense is what makes them look uncertain. The more frantic the correction, the more it suggests that something valuable is at risk inside them. This does not mean calm people are always right or that emotional people are always wrong. It means that nervous defense changes how you are perceived, regardless of the facts. Human beings are constantly reading for congruence. They look at the eyes, the tone, the rhythm, the pressure behind the words. If your explanation sounds like a struggle to regain emotional safety, they sense that before they fully process what you are saying. Seneca would tell you that a disturbed mind is eager to rescue itself. It wants relief now. It wants to push away the discomfort of being doubted. It wants to restore order immediately. But this urgency is dangerous because it places the soul in a begging posture. It says, in effect, I need you to see me correctly so that I can feel stable again. And the moment another person feels that need, the balance shifts. They may become more skeptical. They may become more dominant. They may become more careless. Why? Because need invites pressure. Need tells the world where your exposed nerve is. This is exactly why manipulative people love defensive targets. A person who cannot bear to be misread is easy to control. All you have to do is imply doubt, raise suspicion, distort a little, and they start performing for your approval. They start handing over explanations, emotions, details, motives, all in the hope of restoring a fair image. But fairness was never the goal. The real prize was access to their state, access to their urgency, access to the place where they become eager to prove themselves. Once someone discovers that, they do not need truth on their side. They only need to keep you defending. A disciplined silence breaks this pattern. It does not rush to remove every shadow. It does not panic because someone somewhere may be holding an incomplete view. It understands that image cannot be stabilized through desperation. Only character over time can do that. This is a hard lesson because the ego wants instant correction. It wants the false impression erased now. It wants everyone in the room aligned now. But wisdom knows that some things become clearer only through time, conduct, and emotional economy. What frantic explanation tries to fix in a minute, dignified consistency often resolves with far greater force. Musonius Rufus would likely reduce this to a practical truth. If you live well, you will not need to defend yourself constantly. Not because lies will disappear, but because your life will slowly become stronger evidence than your mouth. That is what so many people forget. Reputation built only on words is fragile. Reputation built on conduct can endure storms. The Stoic therefore asks a different question. Instead of asking, how do I stop them from thinking this? He asks, what kind of life am I living that truth can stand on its own legs? That question leads to power. The other leads to endless emotional labor. There is also dignity in letting some misunderstandings remain unresolved for a time. That is almost unbearable for the average person because they confuse temporary ambiguity with permanent loss. They think if they do not correct it now, it will define them forever. But much of life does not work that way. Many impressions fade. Many false stories collapse under their own inconsistency. Many people reveal their own bias if given enough time. When you rush to defend yourself against everything, you act as though every shadow is fatal. When you remain composed, you acknowledge something deeper. Truth does not always need a bodyguard. That is the power the Stoic begins to carry. Not the power of indifference, but the power of proportion. He sees that not every threat is equal. Not every rumor is dangerous. Not every accusation deserves his pulse. Not every misunderstanding is worth opening the gates of his inner world. He becomes careful with what receives his voice. He becomes selective with what deserves explanation. He begins to understand that the more self-respecting a person becomes, the less available they are for constant defense. And that changes how others feel around them. A person who is always defending themselves invites examination. A person who is rooted invites reflection. One seems to ask, "Do you believe me now?" The other quietly communicates, "Believe what you want, I will remain what I am." That second presence is difficult to shake because it does not depend on immediate agreement. It does not rise and fall with every opinion in the room. It is not scrambling to survive perception, it is standing on something deeper. This is why silence, in the right moment, becomes more persuasive than 100 perfect sentences. It tells the world that you are not built out of borrowed approval. It tells manipulative people that your dignity is not up for negotiation. It tells your own ego that it must learn to survive without applause. And once that lesson enters you deeply, you stop reacting as though every misunderstanding is a threat to your existence. You begin to move like someone who knows that being doubted is uncomfortable, but becoming desperate in response is far more dangerous. The strongest presence in the room is rarely the loudest one. It is usually the least reactive. That is the sixth secret. Most people still live under a primitive illusion. They think power looks like speed, volume, quick comebacks, sharp replies, visible confidence, instant domination. They think the one who answers first controls the moment. But real life keeps proving the opposite. The person who cannot be rushed, cannot be baited, cannot be emotionally pulled into someone else's rhythm, carries a weight that noise cannot imitate. Their silence has density. Their restraint creates gravity. Their calmness makes others reveal their own instability without a single direct attack. This is why reaction is one of the easiest ways to become small in public or in private. The moment someone provokes you and you answer from impulse, the center of the interaction shifts. You are no longer governing the moment. You are obeying it. You are moving on command, even if the command came disguised as insult, doubt, sarcasm, disrespect, or emotional pressure. Most people never notice how humiliating this is at a deeper level. They think they are standing up for themselves, but often they are simply proving that anyone who touches the right nerve can make them move. Epictetus would not tolerate that confusion. He would ask one simple question: if another person can disturb your peace whenever they wish, who is really in control? That is the question most people avoid because it cuts through performance. It does not care how intelligent your response sounded. It does not care whether the room applauded. It asks whether you remained sovereign over your own mind. Because from the Stoic point of view, a person who wins the exchange but loses self-command has not won anything important. They have only decorated their own instability with clever words. There is a physical dimension to this that people underestimate. Reaction changes the body before it changes speech. Breath tightens, jaw hardens, eyes sharpen in the wrong way, the voice gains pressure, rhythm speeds up. The nervous system shifts from grounded presence into defense or attack. And even when the words still sound composed, the body has already confessed the truth. This is why calm has such unusual power. A truly calm person affects the room before they even speak. Their nervous system is not running after approval, not preparing for battle, not trying to dominate perception. It stays rooted. That rootedness is felt by others almost immediately. Marcus Aurelius understood that a person's first duty is not to control events, but to prevent the soul from being dragged into confusion by them. That is what presence really is. It is not image. It is not charisma in the ordinary sense. It is internal order that remains visible under pressure. A disordered person may appear impressive in easy moments, but pressure exposes the architecture within. When challenged, they become defensive. When doubted, they speed up. When insulted, they start performing strength instead of inhabiting it. The Stoic becomes different precisely here. He does not become powerful when life is easy. He becomes unmistakable when tension enters the room and he still refuses to abandon himself. This is why silence can make a person feel larger without saying a word. Not because silence is a trick, but because restraint signals something rare. It signals that your inner state is not for sale. It signals that not every pressure gains access to your energy. It signals that you are not desperate to correct every impression or to defeat every challenger. Most people are secretly testing for this all the time. Consciously or unconsciously, they want to know what moves you, what unsettles you, what makes you hurry, what makes you lose proportion. When they find that point, they know where your freedom ends. But when they keep pressing and your center remains intact, something changes. Their confidence weakens, their strategy loses force, their certainty begins to collapse against your steadiness. Seneca would call this a form of mastery over passion, not the destruction of feeling, but the refusal to become its servant. A person who is ruled by immediate emotion cannot carry enduring presence. They may create impact, but not weight. They may create noise, but not authority. Authority is built from consistency of state. It comes from a person whose interior does not fracture every time the exterior becomes uncomfortable. This is why some people seem powerful, even in stillness. Their calm is not empty. It is disciplined. It is gathered. It is the result of someone who has spent years refusing to let every irritation become a command. There is also a social truth here that many never learn. People trust stillness more than performance. They may be entertained by loud certainty, but they are guided by composed strength. A person who reacts to everything looks available to chaos. A person who remains measured looks available to reality. One feels unstable even when confident. The other feels reliable even when quiet. That difference matters in every domain of life, in conflict, in leadership, in relationships, in family, in moments of tension where everyone is waiting to see who will lose composure first. The one who does not lose it often becomes the silent center around which the entire interaction reorganizes itself. This is why the sixth secret is not merely about speaking less. It is about refusing to let others set the tempo of your soul. That is what reactivity really is. It is borrowed rhythm. It is allowing someone else's disorder to decide how fast you think, how fast you answer, how deeply you breathe, how much of your energy becomes available in the moment. The Stoic breaks that pattern. He slows down inwardly before he does anything outwardly. He does not answer from the sting. He does not act from the surge. He lets the first wave pass so that the self who chooses is stronger than the self who was struck. That is what gives silence its force. It is not just the absence of speech. It is the visible sign that you are still with yourself, that you have not been pulled away, that your nervous system, your thoughts, and your will remain under one command. Most people cannot fake that for long. They can imitate confidence with language, but they cannot imitate deep steadiness under pressure unless it truly exists. That is why stillness unnerves the chaotic. It reminds them that they have not found your handle. It shows them that your mind is not something they can grab and turn. And once this becomes part of you, you stop admiring people for how quickly they react. You start seeing that much of what looks like strength is only speed mixed with ego. You begin to respect the slower force, the cleaner force, the force that does not rush to answer because it has nothing to prove, the force that can stand in tension and remain whole. That is the presence Stoicism builds, not dramatic, not theatrical, not restless. Just deeply governed, deeply anchored, deeply difficult to move. Not every truth should be spoken the moment it appears in your mind. That is the seventh secret. Most people confuse honesty with immediacy. They think that if something is true, it must be said now, directly, completely, and without restraint. They believe this makes them bold, authentic, and real, but very often it only makes them impulsive. It turns truth into discharge. It transforms something that could have been useful into something poorly timed, emotionally contaminated, and needlessly destructive. The Stoic understands a higher discipline. Truth is not only about content, it is also about timing, proportion, and purpose. This is where many people fail without even realizing it. They do not speak because wisdom calls for speech. They speak because tension inside them has become unbearable. They want release. They want the pressure to leave their chest. They want the other person to feel what they are feeling. They want the room corrected immediately. So they call it honesty, when in reality it is urgency wearing the mask of principle. They say, I am just being real. But being real is not the same as being ruled by the first emotion that rises. Zeno, who built Stoicism on living according to reason and nature, would not admire uncontrolled speech simply because it contains a fact. A fact can still be used foolishly. A truth can still be delivered in a way that serves ego instead of virtue. A correct observation can still become a weapon of vanity, anger, or impatience. This is what undisciplined people rarely see. They think the truth justifies the state from which it is spoken, but Stoicism asks a more demanding question. Is this truth being expressed by a governed mind or by a disturbed one? That question changes everything. There are truths that heal when spoken at the right time, and truths that harden resistance when spoken too soon. There are truths that clarify, and truths that only intensify chaos because the hearer is not ready, the setting is wrong, or the speaker is still emotionally entangled. The Stoic therefore refuses to worship bluntness as if bluntness were wisdom. He knows that some people speak quickly, not because they are brave, but because they cannot carry silence long enough to refine what they feel. They throw raw thought into the world and then call the damage authenticity. Marcus Aurelius practiced a different kind of strength. He learned to examine impressions before obeying them. That same discipline applies here. Before speaking, the Stoic pauses and studies the movement inside. Why do I want to say this now? Is it for clarity or for relief? Is it for the good of the situation or for the satisfaction of my pride? Is it meant to illuminate or to dominate? Is this the right moment, or am I simply afraid of carrying what remains unsaid? These questions protect truth from becoming a servant of emotion. This matters because words spoken too early often destroy the very outcome they were trying to protect. A person blurts out what is true but says it with heat, and the listener hears only the heat. A person gives a necessary correction but chooses the moment badly, and the truth is rejected because the timing made it feel like an attack. A person reveals something important while still wounded, and instead of wisdom, the room receives pain in articulate form. The content may still be accurate, but the force behind it distorts its effect. The Stoic understands that mastery is not only knowing what is true, it is knowing how not to betray truth through poor delivery. Chrysippus would have valued this precision. Logic is not merely about being correct. It is about structure, sequence, and coherence. In human life, that means speech must serve order rather than impulse. Not every truth needs public expression. Not every observation deserves immediate release. Not every conflict improves because more has been said. Sometimes the wiser act is to hold the truth, test it, let it cool, and wait until it can emerge in a form that carries force without chaos. This is not repression. It is refinement. There is another reason this lesson is so important. Immediate speech often reveals more about your vulnerability than about the truth itself. When a person cannot delay expression, they show where their inner pressure controls them. They show what must be said in order for them to feel safe again. Manipulative people notice this quickly. They learn what topics make you rush, what accusations make you unload, what tensions make you reveal too much too soon. Once they know that, they can keep pulling on the same threads. Your lack of timing becomes their map. Silence disrupts that vulnerability. Silence allows thought to mature before it becomes visible. It gives your reason time to separate what must be said from what merely wants to escape. It lets emotions settle enough for truth to come forward cleanly. This is why the Stoic does not worship expression. He governs it. He knows that words gain weight when they are chosen, not spilled. He knows that a delayed truth, properly formed, can carry more authority than 10 immediate confessions driven by heat. Seneca understood that passions distort judgment at the very moment they make action feel necessary. Anger insists that now is the only moment. Pride insists that silence is defeat. Hurt insists that speaking is liberation. But these inner voices are often poor advisors. They do not ask what serves virtue, they ask what relieves pressure. The Stoic listens, but he does not obey immediately. He allows the first fire to pass. He does not silence truth forever. He simply refuses to let a boiling mind become its messenger. That restraint creates a different kind of presence. You stop sounding like someone who must be heard to remain stable. You begin to sound like someone who speaks only when speech serves something higher than emotion. People feel the difference. One person speaks to unload, another speaks to clarify. One person uses truth to strike, another uses truth to guide. One person is fast because they are unsettled, another is measured because they are governed. The Stoic belongs to the second kind. This is why silence is not opposed to truth. It protects truth from becoming waste. It keeps it from being dragged into low timing, low energy, and low purpose. It teaches you that what is right does not become more right because it was said in the first heated moment. Sometimes your greatest strength is not saying the true thing immediately. It is carrying it until it becomes precise, useful, and worthy of the character from which it came. Once you learn that, you stop admiring those who always have an answer on the spot. You start respecting those who can hold power in reserve until the right moment gives it full force. One of the greatest forms of power is learning to keep your plans, your healing, and your transformation in silence. That is the eighth secret. Most people talk too early. They announce what they are building before it has roots. They reveal what they are healing before the wound has closed. They explain who they are becoming before they have endured the discipline required to become it. Then they wonder why their strength keeps dissolving. They do not realize that constant exposure weakens fragile things. Not everything grows well under the eyes of others. This is one of the most misunderstood lessons in modern life. People are encouraged to broadcast everything. Every goal, every decision, every emotional shift, every private process becomes public too soon. They call it openness, honesty, transparency. But much of the time it is not wisdom. It is leakage. It is the inability to protect what is still forming. A person who keeps speaking about what they will do often steals energy from the doing itself. A person who keeps describing their healing often keeps reopening the wound in front of audiences who cannot carry it with care. A person who keeps explaining their next move invites noise into a stage of life that needed stillness. The Stoic recognizes that silence is not only useful in conflict, it is essential in growth. There are seasons when speaking less is the only way to keep your direction clear. Every time you explain your progress to the wrong people, you expose it to doubt, envy, mockery, projection, and casual opinions that have no right to shape your path. Even praise can become dangerous if it arrives too early. It can satisfy the ego before discipline has done its work. It can make you feel complete before you have earned completion. It can tempt you to perform transformation instead of living it. Musonius Rufus would have understood this immediately because he valued practical philosophy over display. To him, the point was not to seem wise, but to live wisely. That same principle applies here. The point is not to appear healed, not to appear disciplined, not to appear focused, not to appear reborn. The point is to become those things in reality. And reality is often built in quiet. It is built in repetition, without applause. It is built in decisions that no one sees, in habits that no one praises, in battles that happen away from witnesses. Public language can give the illusion of depth. Silence forces depth to become real. There is also a psychological trap hidden in premature revelation. When you tell people what you are about to do, you often receive emotional relief before the work has begun. The mind mistakes expression for action. It feels movement without having produced results. This is why so many people remain stuck. They have learned to harvest the feeling of progress by speaking about progress instead of paying the cost of it. The Stoic refuses that counterfeit reward. He protects his momentum by refusing to spend it in conversation. He understands that energy used to maintain an image of growth is energy not used for growth itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote for himself, not for applause. That matters. His reflections were not performances for the world. They were tools for governing the soul. There is immense power in that. Not every inner process needs an audience. Not every discipline needs a witness. Not every change needs immediate recognition. In fact, some of the strongest transformations lose force the moment they become too dependent on being seen. Once other people are watching, ego enters. Once ego enters, the process becomes polluted. You start adjusting your path to protect an identity rather than to build a character. Healing especially requires this kind of protection. Many people speak about their pain before they have made peace with it. They expose the most delicate parts of themselves in environments that do not deserve that access. They speak because they want understanding, but often they end up with interpretation, advice, comparison, or silent judgment. Then the pain becomes more complicated. It is no longer just a wound. It becomes a wound mixed with the pressure of being perceived. The Stoic becomes careful here. He does not deny pain. He does not pretend invulnerability, but he understands that not every listener is a place of safety. Some things need solitude before they can survive contact with the world. The same is true for your plans. A goal spoken too early becomes vulnerable to interruption. Sometimes others discourage you. Sometimes they laugh. Sometimes they subtly plant doubt. Sometimes they overwhelm the simplicity of your next step with their opinions. And even when they support you, the energy of speaking can disperse the energy of building. Silence protects concentration. It keeps your will gathered. It lets your work mature before being touched by the weather of other minds. Seneca would remind you that what matters is not the impression of progress, but the substance of it. A person may speak brilliantly about discipline and still remain undisciplined. Another may say almost nothing and quietly transform their life. The world often notices the first person sooner. Time eventually reveals the second as the stronger one. This is why Stoicism has no interest in premature display. It is concerned with what endures. What endures is usually built without noise. There is dignity in this kind of privacy. You stop feeling the need to announce every lesson as you learn it. You stop treating your becoming as content for consumption. You stop inviting every eye into spaces that should remain sacred. You realize that silence is not secrecy born of fear. It is protection born of intelligence. It is the recognition that what is still becoming should not be constantly touched by commentary. Seeds do not become trees because they are exposed. They become trees because they are rooted deeply enough to withstand exposure later. This is why the Stoic often appears mysterious to others, not because he is playing a role, but because he has stopped explaining everything that lives inside him. He has learned that power leaks through needless disclosure. He has learned that some of the strongest decisions become stronger when kept in the quiet until action has given them form. He no longer needs people to know what he is building in order to remain committed to building it. He no longer needs public understanding to validate private discipline. That is freedom. And once you learn this, silence becomes a sanctuary, a place where your plans can harden into action, a place where your healing can settle into strength, a place where your transformation can move from idea to reality without being drained by constant explanation. Then something changes in you. You stop speaking to be seen. You begin working to become. And when the results arrive, they speak with a clarity that early words never could. The moment you stop defending yourself all the time, you begin to see people with a clarity that used to be impossible. That is the ninth secret. As long as you are obsessed with correcting how others perceive you, most of your energy is trapped in self-protection. You are not observing. You are not studying. You are not understanding the deeper structure of what is happening. You are only trying to survive the moment with your image intact. But when you become silent, when you stop rushing to explain, when you stop trying to rescue your reputation from every careless mind, a different power awakens. You start reading people instead of reacting to them. This is one of the greatest shifts a person can experience. The average individual enters difficult interactions focused almost entirely on themselves. How am I being seen? How do I sound? How do I correct this? How do I make them understand? How do I stop this from turning against me? All of that attention remains locked inward, but in the weakest possible way. It is not self-knowledge. It is self-preoccupation under pressure. And because of that, the other person remains largely unread. Their motives stay hidden. Their patterns go unnoticed. Their emotional strategy keeps working. The Stoic breaks this spell by stepping out of performance and into perception. Epictetus would have recognized this immediately. If your peace depends on the other person's opinion, then you are too busy serving that opinion to examine the person holding it. You become a slave to the exchange. But when you no longer feel compelled to win their approval, you recover your sight. You start noticing what kind of person is actually in front of you. Are they seeking truth or advantage? Are they asking to understand or asking to trap? Are they hurt and confused or manipulative and calculated? Are they consistent or do they keep shifting their position to maintain control? These things become visible only when your ego stops screaming for self-defense. Silence sharpens perception because it creates distance between stimulus and response. In that distance, details emerge. You notice the small changes in tone. You notice what subjects make a person more aggressive. You notice whether they listen to your words or only wait for openings to reassert themselves. You notice if they are genuinely present or just performing concern, intelligence, morality, or calm. None of this is easy to see when you are emotionally entangled. Entanglement narrows vision. It makes the moment feel like a fight for survival, even when what is really needed is discernment. This is why silence is not only protective, it is diagnostic. It helps you understand the true nature of the relationship, the conflict, and the person in front of you. A manipulative person becomes clearer when they are denied emotional access. An insecure person becomes clearer when they are not being reassured. An arrogant person becomes clearer when they are not being challenged in the exact way they expected. A dishonest person becomes clearer when they are allowed enough space to contradict themselves. Silence lets patterns continue long enough to become obvious. Marcus Aurelius constantly trained himself to see people as they were, not as emotion first presented them. That is a profound form of strength. Most people do not see others clearly because they are always seeing through the fog of personal hurt, personal need, personal offense, personal hope. The Stoic works to remove that fog. He asks, what is actually happening here? Not what am I afraid this means? Not how do I defend myself from this feeling, but what is the nature of this person, this exchange, this pattern? The mind that can ask that question calmly has already risen above the level where most people remain trapped. This matters because once you see clearly, your decisions improve. You stop wasting truth on people who only want reaction. You stop exposing your inner life to those who have shown no capacity to honor it. You stop calling every difficult person misunderstood when they are simply disordered. You stop trying to heal dynamics that survive by keeping you confused. Perception saves energy. It prevents repetition. It stops you from volunteering for the same emotional traps again and again under new names. Seneca knew that much of suffering comes from our failure to judge well. We suffer not only because others do wrong, but because we keep misreading what kind of wrong we are facing. Sometimes we think we are dealing with ignorance when we are actually dealing with vanity. Sometimes we think we are facing a misunderstanding when we are actually facing hostility hidden behind politeness. Sometimes we think patience will soften the person, when in truth our continued engagement is only teaching them that access to us has no real cost. Silence helps reveal these distinctions. It is a form of moral and psychological intelligence. There is also something else that happens when you stop defending yourself constantly. You stop giving people the map to your sensitivities. Every repeated defense teaches others where your identity is vulnerable. It shows them what accusations reach you, what judgments destabilize you, what topics make you over-explain, what forms of rejection make you chase. But when you become quieter, you stop revealing all of that on command. You become harder to read in the ways that protect your peace, while becoming better at reading others in the ways that protect your judgment. That is not manipulation. That is maturity. The Stoic does not study people in order to dominate them. He studies them so he can relate to reality instead of fantasy. He wants to know who is safe, who is sincere, who is unstable, who is driven by ego, who is capable of dialogue, and who should only be met with boundaries. Without this clarity, compassion becomes naive, patience becomes self-betrayal, and openness becomes an invitation to harm. Silence restores proportion. It gives your mind the chance to separate what is merely unpleasant from what is truly unhealthy. And once that capacity grows, something changes in the way you move through life. You become less easily impressed by charm, less easily guilted by pressure, less easily confused by emotional displays. You begin to sense when someone is trying to control the frame of a conversation. You notice when a person keeps redirecting, avoiding, projecting, or fishing for a reaction. You stop taking every difficult moment personally and start understanding many of them structurally. That shift is enormous. It frees you from the exhausting habit of making yourself the center of every tension. Now you can actually see what is there. This is why silence becomes such a formidable source of power. It returns your attention to the one thing reactivity always steals from you: clear perception. The reactive person may feel strong in the moment, but they often walk away blind. The Stoic may appear quiet, but he walks away knowing more. He has seen what tone could not hide. He has felt what language tried to decorate. He has watched the pattern continue long enough to reveal its shape. That knowledge is worth more than the satisfaction of a fast reply. When you no longer need to defend yourself in every moment, you stop living at the surface of human interaction. You start seeing the currents underneath. You begin to understand why certain people drain you, why certain exchanges always leave you confused, why some conflicts repeat the same script with different words. And once you see the pattern, you are no longer trapped inside it. That is the gift of disciplined silence. It does not merely preserve your peace, it teaches you who deserves access to it. True power begins the moment you no longer need the final word. That is the 10th secret. For most people, the final word feels like victory. It feels like control restored. It feels like dignity recovered. They believe that if they can say one more thing, one sharper thing, one cleaner thing, one undeniable thing, then the balance will return and the wound inside them will close. But that is one of the oldest illusions of the ego. The need for the final word is rarely about truth. It is about the inability to leave the battlefield without emotional compensation. This is why so many people remain trapped in cycles that should have ended much earlier. The conversation is already dead. The exchange has already lost depth. The other person has already shown that wisdom is not the goal. And still the mind keeps reaching for one last sentence, one last correction, one last explanation, one last strike. It is not doing this because the situation still deserves effort. It is doing this because the ego cannot tolerate incompletion. It cannot bear the possibility that the other person will walk away thinking they were right. It cannot accept that misunderstanding may remain alive somewhere beyond its reach, and so it keeps fighting long after wisdom has left the room. The Stoic breaks this pattern by understanding something most people spend years refusing to face. Closure is not always given by the other person. Often, it must be created within yourself. The world will not always hand you the clean ending you want. Some people will leave with the wrong story. Some will continue believing their distortion. Some will repeat their version to others. Some will never return to the conversation with honesty. If your peace depends on fixing all of that, you will remain emotionally chained to people who do not deserve that level of influence over your life. The final word then becomes not a sign of power, but proof of bondage. Epictetus would ask again, what is truly yours and what is not? Your judgment is yours. Your character is yours. Your conduct is yours. Another person's conclusion is not. Their stubbornness is not. Their version of events is not. Their refusal to grow is not. Once you understand this deeply, something inside you stops begging for the right ending. You realize that wisdom is not measured by who speaks last. It is measured by who remains inwardly free when the conversation is no longer worth continuing. This is difficult because the ego disguises its hunger in noble language. It says, I just want the truth to be clear. I just want fairness. I just want to make one final point. But beneath that language, there is often something more primitive. I do not want to feel dismissed. I do not want them to leave thinking they defeated me. I do not want to sit with the discomfort of not being fully vindicated. The Stoic does not hate this impulse. He studies it. He sees it for what it is. Then he refuses to let it rule him. That refusal is a higher victory than any final sentence could ever produce. Marcus Aurelius lived among conflict, politics, betrayal, vanity, rumor, ambition, and all the noise that comes with human weakness. If he had needed the final word in every insult, every challenge, every misreading, he would have spent his life in exhaustion. Instead, he kept returning to the same discipline. Stay with your own reason. Stay with your own duty. Stay with your own nature. Let others do what they do. You do not have to enter every fire in order to prove you are not made of smoke. This is the shift. A lower mind tries to win the exchange. A stronger mind tries not to lose itself in it. There is tremendous dignity in being able to stop. Not stop because you are defeated, but stop because you have seen enough. Stop because the conversation is no longer serving truth. Stop because your peace is worth more than your pride. Stop because not every unfinished argument deserves unfinished space inside your mind. This is one of the rarest skills in the modern world. People have been trained to answer everything, comment on everything, prove everything, react to everything. They think access must always be met with response. The Stoic teaches the opposite. Access is a privilege. Not every voice earns continuation. Seneca understood that passions feed on prolongation. The longer you stay in an ego-driven exchange, the more the mind becomes attached to winning rather than understanding. It begins to rehearse instead of reflect. It begins to harden instead of clarify. What could have ended with one measured boundary becomes a long chain of emotional investment. And the cruel part is that even if you get the final word, the satisfaction is usually brief. Very brief, because the deeper problem was never the missing sentence. It was the undisciplined need beneath it. Feed that need once, and it returns stronger the next time. This is why silence at the end of a conflict can be one of the highest forms of self-command. It is not empty. It is decisive. It says, "I have seen enough to know this no longer deserves me." It says, "I do not need the final sound in order to remain whole." It says, "Your misunderstanding can exist without becoming my prison." That kind of silence is difficult because it asks you to endure something the ego hates, unresolved tension. But if you can endure that tension without running back for the last word, you cross into a different level of freedom. You stop being governed by the emotional need to complete every circle in public. Cato the Younger embodied this kind of moral hardness. He was not interested in theatrical victory. He was interested in integrity. That is the model here. Integrity does not always look satisfying in the short term. Sometimes it looks like restraint when the ego wants retaliation. Sometimes it looks like departure when the ego wants dominance. Sometimes it looks like quiet when the ego wants a stage. But over time, that integrity creates something far more powerful than conversational triumph. It creates a person who cannot be easily hooked because they no longer mistake the last word for the last truth. And that is the deepest shift of all. You begin to understand that truth does not need you to chase the final line in every exchange. Truth can remain true after you leave. Character can remain strong after you fall silent. Dignity can remain intact without public resolution. The weak mind needs to be seen winning. The stronger mind is content with not becoming small in the attempt. Once you live from that place, conversations stop owning your nervous system. You stop replaying unfinished exchanges as if they were threats to your identity. You stop measuring your strength by how effectively you can out-talk someone at the edge of conflict. You become quieter but not weaker, more restrained but not more fearful, more deliberate but far less available to ego traps. You no longer need the final word because you have already found something greater than verbal victory. You have found command over yourself. And in the Stoic life, that is the only form of power that no one can take from you. There comes a point in life when you begin to understand that not every battle is asking for your courage. Some are asking for your ego. Some are asking for your insecurity. Some are asking for that old, undisciplined part of you that still believes your worth must be defended in public to remain real in private. And if you do not learn to tell the difference, you will keep spending your strength where only your weakness is being invited. That is why silence becomes one of the most misunderstood forms of power. The world often sees silence and imagines fear. It sees restraint and imagines passivity. It sees a person refusing to argue, refusing to defend, refusing to explain, and assumes they have nothing solid within them. But Stoicism reveals the opposite. Very often, silence is what remains when a person has finally stopped betraying themselves for the sake of appearance. It is what remains when the need to be understood by everyone has lost its grip. It is what remains when the soul has learned that dignity does not grow through performance, but through self-command. You have seen what happens when people cannot bear to be misread. They explain too much. They defend too fast. They argue with the unworthy. They reveal plans too early. They speak truths at the wrong time. They become reactive, exposed, predictable, and exhausted. Their words do not protect them. They slowly scatter them. And all the while, they believe they are fighting for respect, when in fact they are handing away the very calm that makes respect possible. The Stoic walks a different path. He does not rush to correct every false impression because he knows image is a fragile god. He does not chase the final word because he knows the ego always calls that victory. He does not speak every truth the instant it appears because he knows a disturbed mind can turn truth into damage. He does not expose every wound, every goal, every inner shift to the eyes of others, because he knows fragile things need silence before they can endure contact. He does not confuse reaction with strength, speed with authority, or noise with clarity. He returns again and again to the same question: am I still governing myself? That question is the center of everything, because the real danger was never that someone might misunderstand you. The real danger was that their misunderstanding might be enough to make you abandon yourself. The real danger was never that someone might accuse you, distort you, provoke you, or doubt you. The real danger was that you might begin living as though their perception were more important than your principles. Once that happens, the chain is already in place. You may still look strong from the outside, but inwardly you have become dependent on forces you do not control. Silence breaks that dependence. It teaches you to survive without immediate vindication. It teaches you to let some falsehoods collapse on their own. It teaches you to see people more clearly because you are no longer busy rescuing your image from their hands. It teaches you to protect your plans, your healing, and your becoming from the corruption of premature exposure. It teaches you to delay truth until it can serve wisdom instead of emotion. It teaches you that the strongest presence is often the one that cannot be provoked into performing itself. Most of all, it teaches you that peace is not built by controlling the minds of others. It is built by refusing to let them control yours. Marcus Aurelius knew this. Epictetus knew this. Seneca knew this. They understood that life becomes lighter, sharper, and far more dignified when you stop trying to win every exchange and start mastering the mind that enters them. This is the quiet revolution Stoicism offers. Not a louder personality, not a colder heart, not a detached mask, a governed soul, a mind that does not kneel every time it is challenged, a character that no longer needs applause, explanation, or last-minute rescue to remain whole. So when the next misunderstanding comes, when the next accusation rises, when the next person tries to pull you into noise, remember this: you do not need to answer every voice. You do not need to defend every truth. You do not need to explain every silence. Sometimes the highest form of strength is to remain rooted while lesser energies exhaust themselves around you. Sometimes the most powerful statement is the dignity of a person who no longer chases permission to be at peace. That is when silence stops being absence. That is when silence becomes your power.